All right, so I'm here with the legendary Sean Adams. Sean, thanks for being on today.
Oh, happy to do it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. You are the first video guest, and I could not have picked a better person for it with that
I don't know
hair.
about that. It'll go horribly awry, and the hair will just get flat.
Probably. We'll try and make it. We'll try and make it short so we can keep the hair up.
Okay, right.
All right, so I recently completed your class on lynda.com, Foundations of Graphic Design History. It was a
Oh,
fantastic
great.
class. Yeah, it was awesome. And then less than a week later, I was at the Cooper Hewitt drooling over everything that I can get my hands on. I remember
Uh-huh.
there was this younger girl was there. She was staring at me, and I was looking at the Paul Rand the um, the light bulb packaging, and I was looking at that, and I
Right.
remember the girl was looking at me like, "What are you looking at?" I was like, "Look, take Sean Adams' class, and you'll know everything you need
You'll
to
get
know.
it. You'll understand why this is so
The
good.
importance." Yeah, yeah.
Right. So it didn't get you any dates, like
No,
the Paul Rand piece.
no, no, no. But anyway, when you're teaching your students, how do you try to convey to them the importance of design history and how that affects everything around us that we see today?
The reason I push so hard on it, it's not just because I'm a total history geek, which I am, but the it's sort of like if you were going to be a great writer, you would go to college and they would make you read books, right? I'm
Right.
assuming you would be forced to read Dickens and Twain and contemporary work. But if you're a designer, we see things. The more stuff you see, the more you have a visual vocabulary that's bigger and bigger and bigger. And you need to understand the history of the work so that you can say, wow, that's like that incredible Malevich, or which I did actually this morning. I was talking to someone about tension in their work, and I said, like, think of those Maleviches with like the squares and the circles. And she said, oh, you're right, I totally get it now. And so it's about that broadening of your vocabulary so that you have this sort of large reference pane to pull from. And it's not about copying. It's not like, oh, I'll remember the Paul Rand stripe thing and then I'll just copy Paul Rand. But I'm all of a sudden, I'm working on a package. Wait, I don't have to stick to one side. Hey, Paul Rand wrapped the whole damn thing. I will too.
Right. That's very true. Last week I talked to Todd DeWitt, who is also an on-air author at lynda.com, and we talked about how sites like Lynda are changing the education landscape and the way that designers and business professionals alike learn new skills. What have you witnessed with your students and with people that you work with in your day-to-day life in terms of using
The
Lynda?
in terms of using like Lynda or LinkedIn,
Yeah.
um, the thing that I really like about it, I see it with my students, but you know how you're never a hero in your own hometown.
Right.
You're sort of like they're just like, yeah, whatever, God. But I see it more when I'm out doing a speaking engagement somewhere else in the country, and I get so many people that come up to me and say, wow, I learned so much. I'd never thought of design this way. It totally opened my mind. Or even better, I really decided I needed a design education. That it wasn't enough just to try it myself in Word. Um, and that means so much that you can talk to someone and it's just access. It's like these people are amazing designers, but there's nobody in their town that does graphic design. I mean, it was the same way with me when I was in high school. Nobody even knew what it was. I mean, I was like, I like dealing with type and words. And my art teacher was a ceramics person. And she was like, I don't know what the hell that stuff is. Is that advertising? I don't know what it is. And
Right.
so it's great to give them that access to that kind of information. They strangely enough, they do get it. I feel terrible in class sometimes. I'll like yesterday or on Friday we were talking about the golden rectangle, and I said, oh, you know what? Here, just watch this. Just play, my
Right.
section on the golden rectangle, and you sort of feel like bad teacher because you're just like,
Yeah.
hey, watch my videos. I'm not bothered. But they've got visuals, they have animations, they do so much better than I could in real life.
Yeah. For
But
sure.
they get it faster, even 3 minutes of the video, and they understand it as opposed to me standing at the board drawing for 2 hours.
Right, and I think it too. I've seen it because I'm in college right now, and I see it and a lot of like the senior level classes. Like the other day we were in a web design class, and usually I think that they would kind of be going over the nuts and bolts of web design. But somebody asked, how do you run a Semplice theme with WordPress? The one that Tobias Van Schneider made.
Right.
How do and the professor, which is beside himself because like we're working on CSS style sheets here, and these
Right.
people are already so far ahead. So that's kind of
They're
cool.
jumping ahead. Yeah, and that's a great thing. And I mean, here at Art Center, their first year, there are a lot of lynda.com courses because they have so much to learn, and it would just be a huge waste of time to say I'm going to spend a whole term dealing with teaching someone InDesign
Right.
when we could be talking about concepts and ideas. And unfortunately, it's like, well, go home. You're going to have to learn it on your own. Watch lynda.com, and
Yeah.
you'll get there.
Yeah.
Um,
That's fun though.
but it
I
does.
enjoy lynda.com.
Yeah.
I've kind of replaced it with Netflix. Anytime I sit down to binge watch, another season of Breaking Bad, I say I could be taking a Sean Adams
Right.
class or whoever.
Yeah. I can
So
learn something useful. I
absolutely.
use it myself. I mean, last week I was using it just to look at sociotexture stuff. Like I was like, what are the interactions between Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter? And I was like, there's probably a course on that. Let me find that.
Yeah, and there is always a
There
course that
is.
blows my mind.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, I'm graduating and coming up in June. I could have been a doctor with how long I was in
Congratulations.
school. Thank you very much. There's one thing I learned. We kind of the senior level people and the freshmen, they kind of get mixed together, but it creates an interesting dynamic there.
Hmm.
But one of the things that I realize is that a lot of people, when coming in to the college classroom to learn about design, they feel, well, if my work can be identified, or if they could tell that's my style,
Right.
that would mean that I'm a good designer. But leaving, it's oftentimes the students who could make the most unexpected solutions, are at each client they can do kind of differently.
Hmm.
They come off as the most talented, to me at least. I mean, these are
Yeah.
all generalizations, but I really think it's about kind of putting themselves in. It's not so much about having a style, but it's about being able to put yourself in the shoes of the client, so to speak, and really
Hmm.
doing the research and finding that genuine inspiration. And I again to mention Tobias, I read an article today, and he was talking about that. That's kind of where I got the idea from this question from, because I like to do my questions last minute for this podcast. It's
That's good.
an
I
overall
like to
theme
think
here.
of them last minute too. So.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh.
But what's your opinion about having a style? It's a conversation you hear a lot. It's kind of cliched in the design world, but it's an interesting one. Is it better to have a style or to just have a wide range? I mean, what's your
The way that I look at it is that you have a life experience that only you have. Like no matter what, you're in the entire world. You're of all the 7 billion people, the only one that has had that experience that has made you who you are. That's going to come through in your work, regardless if you want it to or not. It's going to somehow the things you believe in, the principles that you hold hold strong to, are going to show up. I mean, if you believe the world is a scary, messy place and you hate it and it's terrible, your work's going to reflect that. If you believe like, wow, I can make design help people and do good and make things easier, well, it'll probably be easier to understand and more legible. There's going to be choices, aesthetic choices, based on your experience. So I don't think you can do work without having a style.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a style as much as like a veneer or icing on a cake. It's more of understanding what drives you and what your passions are and letting that come through in the work. But at the same time, really looking at the projects themselves and saying, what can I do to make this the best possible version of this thing? Not how can I paint on top of it and make it pretty or groovy, which I think is the worst possible trap a designer can ever fall into, is to try to be cool. I just think you are on the road to hell. Like there is no way. You will never, ever be the coolest person in the room. The minute you get out of school, like 2 years later, there's going to be people that are cooler than you. So if you're always on the march, like I got to do something even groovier, I'm going to do something even cooler, I'm going to find that typeface that's even cooler. Good luck with that. It just ends up looking desperate.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say like desperation is not pretty in a bar at 2 a.m. and it's not pretty in graphic design.
It's true.
Sort of just do the work and solve the problem, but at the same time have an understanding of why you do it. Like, why are you a designer? What do you believe design can do? I work with the graduating students here, and really a lot of it is to help define them as an artist and say, well, what separates you from the guy down the street? Well, it's your experience. And what is it you believe in terms of design? Should it be uplifting? Should it be mysterious? Should it ask questions? What are things that you follow on?
Right.
And then let that sort of be a background to a guide. I think I made a mistake when I was in college that I was convinced there was just one style that was cool and just leapt all over it. And it was after I was out of school for about 5 years that I realized what a loss that had been. That I had because I had rejected so much other work that now I look at and think is unbelievably great. And if I had just suspended judgment for a little while and not been, this is good, this is not, this is good, this, if I just said, hey, maybe it's all good. What if I just open up my mind and say, maybe, and it drives me nuts. I feel like I lost 5 years of looking at great work because I was so close-minded about it's not cool enough.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely the case. And I think that also, just that, I wasn't even planning on saying this, but I think that that you are successful in that because I think that I first found you on Lynda, and then I discovered your work afterwards. And I got in trouble many a times at my last job for scrolling through your thing when I was supposed to be working. But your style kind of is reminiscent of your personality. You're very very kind of fun and an out there person, and I think your design is kind of the same with lots of overcropping. Thanks. I like it. With lots of big scale things, much like your personality. So
I just figure if you're gonna make it big, make it huge. If you're gonna make it small, make it tiny.
That's true.
Don't do anything in between.
I use that all the time. I really and from that that was from your composition course.
I think I point that out there. Yeah.
I do that on business cards all the time.
But you don't want to do pussy design.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want. This is.
Yeah.
Say what you want.
Then they're like, no, don't say that. You can't say that. I'm like,
you can say whatever you want.
No, you're pussying out. Come on, make it big.
Yeah, designers should be brash. There's this thing where it's all like PC. Like I don't know. Sometimes I go to these events and it all seems so like, oh, how are you? It should be loud and proud.
Right.
And
yeah, exactly. I mean, enjoy life and live it and just be out there.
All the good designers that I've met, they're all crazy. So
we are all crazy. I mean, granted, thank you for the compliment, but I will say the group of friends that I have that are well-known designers, not only are we all nuts in our own weird way, but they are the nicest people you'll ever meet. Like Absolutely. They are all everyone thinks, oh, famous designers are just going to be assholes. They're just going to be like all snobby. It's the opposite. Yep. They are always the ones that are the first to say, hey, can I help you? What are you doing? Yeah. It's sort of another level of people that I find are the snobbiest, the ones that are maybe don't have the right to be. That you're like, why are you being such a jerk? Like, how hard is it to give back?
Absolutely. And I think that Michael Beirut said it. I quote Michael Beirut all the time, but he's a good person to quote.
Good to quote. I like to quote him too.
I've seen every YouTube video. He needs to put out more material. I'm caught up. I'm ready for the next season of Michael Beirut. But he said that just remember when you're out, it was like any advice to young designers, and they always kind of have like the same cliche answers. His advice was remember that nobody normal goes to art school, and I agree wholeheartedly with that. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I sort of follow that with the thing that makes you strange, weird, and dorky is the thing that makes you amazing.
Right, that's very true. Okay, one of the things that I love about Burning Settlers Cabin, I think I might have mentioned this before, is your blog. It's not as polished on the blog. Let's just say that.
Thanks.
Speaking of being brash, one of the things that I love about it is your collections of books, and you will often display and edit them, which I think is kind of funny because I would do the same. Adjusting and colorizing. I found it fun. This is a funny quote that I found. I've been cleaning out books lately. There are many duplicates in books I've read. I tried donating them to Goodwill, but they don't accept books. I considered making a pile of books on the driveway, setting them on fire, and yelling, "Burn, hateful Catcher in the Rye, Satan book."
Right.
But my neighbors already are wary of me, so I didn't. That's a classic. Yeah. So if you haven't been to his blog yet, if that doesn't make you want to go, I don't know what will.
Right.
One of the books you had in there was, bear with me, this all segues together. One of the books you had in there was Walt Disney World and the Epcot Center, 1987. And you have a lot
Uh-huh.
of other posts about Disney. The pictures are fantastic. They're
Oh,
so
thanks.
great. I love them. I really do. And I too am infatuated with all things Disney. I recently went
Hmm.
back there this summer. My girl,
Uh-huh.
fiance's
Oh, congratulations.
sister. Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to get it all underway, as quick as I can.
Right.
But
Yeah.
her sister lives in Florida, and I went back, and it was the first time since I was a kid, and it was just as incredible. I kind of took it in, on the one hand enjoying Disney World, and on the other hand, trying to define the brand experience as most
Right. Yeah.
designers do. It's nice. It's like I appreciate little things about it. But why is it that so many designers love Disney World? I've heard Ron Burridge on Design Matters was talking about how he would carpet bomb them with resumes, and they all love Disney World. What is it about Disney that's different than other brands that we are all so obsessed with?
I mean, it's a really good question. The funny thing is, I mean, a story. I was I'd invited some friends out. I'm not going to name names, but they're like very well known designers and very very serious like hardcore kind of New York designers, and they were in LA. And I said, look, let's go to Disneyland. Your kids have never been, and they were like, oh, we don't do that. We're not those kind of people. That's not our thing. And
Or to send them home?
they're the thing is, I guess I thought, oh, it was going to be some cheesy amusement park, and I'm like, no, 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 let's try it. They loved it. I mean, they came back like for a visit a few months later just to do Disneyland for like 3 days, and I think as designers we like it because it's so incredibly visual and immersive, but it's smart. It's not slapped together.
Hmm.
There's all these unbelievable little tricks that are running through visually that I think we notice. Like civilians don't tend to notice. Gee, the body color on that building and the trim then match the building next to it. The trim dictates the building next to
Right.
its body
And
color.
matching
And
printed
down,
materials.
yeah, and gee, all the signs are exactly on the same level on Main Street. How does it, little things like that, or yeah, I mean, like
Yeah.
designers, we're spending time taking pictures of signs, and everyone else is taking pictures of their families, and.
Hmm.
So I think it's partially that, and it's just good storytelling, and sort of amazing storytelling. And I'm always wary of designers that are like, it's not my thing. I refuse to go. I mean, I'm fine if you're like, yeah, you don't want to go, and it's like, but to discount it as irrelevant makes no sense. It's
Right.
Disneyland and Disney World are the number one and number two tourist attractions in the entire world, and they've been that way forever. Why would you ignore something that has that much popular cultural appeal if we traffic in popular culture? It just
Right.
seems. Right. I mean, at least get to understand it. I mean, if you want to hate it, be my guest, but at least recognize this is a viable point to look at.
Right, and I think too that's kind of an interesting point because it's about leveraging from the best, and why is it that so many people we talk about like learning from Disney and from all the great people who that those are the very best designers, the very best architects. Um,
Hmm.
why is it that people I don't want to. I'm keep making generalizations here, but why is it that designers are so set out to kind of go it themselves? And I don't want to visit Disney World. I've seen it all. I know it all. Why is it that it seems more like designers are like that as opposed to, leveraging from the greats and reading the books that people provide?
You know what? I have no idea. I always find that completely mystifying. Why someone is resistant to go back and spend some time looking at Saul Bass and his career. I've had students actually say to me, "But it's old. Why does it matter?" And I just think, how could you lose all of that amazing, great work just to ignore it under some mistaken concept that you're going to come up with something completely original and never thought of before, which is
Right.
not going to happen. I mean,
Yeah.
let's face it, we're all just basically ripping past.
Yes.
At least know what you're ripping off. Like, have some sense of what you're doing, that it's not just arbitrary, like, oh, I didn't realize I was ripping off Paul Rand.
Right.
So it never really makes sense to me. I mean, someone like Michael Beirut, if you talk to Michael, mention a piece and he will say to you, oh, that's page 158 in the Tibor Kalman book.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows exactly what book has what page and what's going on. And it's that wide range of information, and not just in graphic design, but you can mention a film, and he can. I mean, I think Michael's the first person that ever told me to watch Showgirls, which was like, I'm like, are you kidding, really? And he was able to actually like basically recite the lines of an entire section, and I'm like, well, I got to watch it now. If that's the dialogue, I've got to watch it. This
Yeah.
is amazing, you know.
Yeah.
But that it's like that sort of that insatiable like thirst we have for amazing stuff and discovery and finding things.
Yeah.
I had a student the other day, and she'd never been to the library, and I was like, "Are you kidding? Let's go. We're going together. We're going to go to the school library. I'm going to show you how it works." And I showed her where the books are, showed her how to use the catalog. She fled from the library, like terrified. I have no idea what it was. Like she'd been like tortured in there or something, and I'm like, what is the problem? You know, and I had asked her, I said, well, don't you have any books? Oh, I don't have any books. And I'm like, books are like porn to designers. We buy too many of them.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, I spent all my money on books, you know? So that makes no sense to me. That just completely mystifies me.
And I had I took one of those classes. I'm sure you guys have them at your college as well, but kind of like a digital literacy kind of class.
Right.
And there was an example that they talked about in the book, or an illustration, I guess they talked about in the book, talking about how our culture today is like jet skiing, whereas reading books is like scuba diving. I mean, I'm sure there have been different variations of that quote. I'm sure they stole that from somewhere else.
Yeah, it's a good quote.
But it's true. It's true though, and I kind of found that when I first went to college, I would go on Behance or see things that was cool. I want to design like that. But where I really fell in love with design is when I started, reading Michael Beyrout's How To. I know that's more of a recent book, but things along that line. And really reading every page and just, I'm just going to read one page, and then finding yourself 45 minutes later, kind of delving deeper and delving deeper. Do you think that, you know a lot of people because of your position that are the industry, the greats of the industry. Do you think that they are all at that place because of their research, because of their real, a wantingness to learn more? Is that what makes designers great, or do some people just kind of have it?
I think that's a really good point. I agree with you. I think it's those people that are passionate to learn about anything new, that you get a project and you don't know how to do it, and that's the best part. And you take on something because it's a challenge. That's how I define work that's fun. When people say, well, you seem like you just take on fun projects. I'm like, no, I take on challenging projects, things that challenge me. Otherwise, why bother? I mean, this is one of the reasons why I decided to shut the firm down and move forward on another path, because we're like, I've done that. Now it's time to try something new. Yeah. And every designer I know is that I really respect are just, I want to learn more. Oh my God, I just found out this whole amazing thing. I just learned this book. I found this book on physics. You've got to read it. It's it's not just graphic design, but you get obsessed by something. I mean, I did one.com course on the arts and crafts movement, which about 4 people have watched. But
I was one of the 4.
Oh, thank you. I actually, they knew it and I knew it. I said, this is going to have totally low viewership, but we need to do it. We need to show that we can do a deep dive into something. And I didn't have enough information to talk about the arts and crafts movement for 2.5 hours, but after I was done with it, I did. I mean, it took a ton of research, and I was like, wow, this really changed the way I think about certain things. And I never thought of handling it like that. And that was great. I mean, I specifically chose it as subject because it was stuff I knew the least about.
Right. That's cool. You mentioned Adams Morioka, and I love the work that you did. All of it. I think I tweeted to you, or this is before we were friends, obviously. I'm not sure. Right. No, but I tweeted the stationery for the Academy of the Arts. That stuff was just fantastic. It's all great, but that's the one that always kind of sticks with me. Yeah,
that was fun. That stuff's in real life. I mean, the design's so simple. A monkey could have done it. Yeah. But the production on it, I mean, the printing is like, that gold foil is embossed. It's beautiful. I mean, and the mark itself was drawn by Doyle Young, who's an amazing letterform designer and master. And it was one of the last projects he did before he died. And I called Doyle because, I knew he was the best. And he redrew the statuette so flawlessly. I mean, and they had never had a consistent statuette icon in their whatever 70, 80 years of working, and I really love that. It was also when we did the identity system, it was the typography I had Doyle to also do, and it was an homage to the title sequence for Spartacus that Saul Bass had designed, and Doyle had worked on that also, and so it was kind of cool to say, okay, 50 years later, let's resurrect this, and sort of, and Saul is a reason the Academy had gone to me, was Saul had recommended me, and so it was like sort of came full circle to sort of pay respect to the greats.
That's awesome. And the work that you guys also did, and I know you are doing different projects now.
Right.
It's so funny. I should just mention this as kind of a side note. That I told everyone that I'm having this guy Sean Adams coming on the podcast, and he's my favorite designer and all this stuff. And it's so funny when I talk to people my age. I'm 24, and when I talk to people my age, and I said he's the guy who did the Nickelodeon logo, people are like, "Oh, what? Really?" Like for our generation, that Mark and as well as the Nick Knight you did too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That
Nick
people
and Nick
I got
Jr.
street cred with my friends now because we're friends. I have
Cool.
This is the video proof right here.
I think my niece has told all of her friends that not only did I do Nickelodeon, but I did all of Disney. And I'm like, no, Isabel, I did not do all of Disney. Okay, but she's just sort of expanded on it, to get even more. But that was such a fun project. I mean, and that was a good 10-year relationship. It was great to move from one brand to the next throughout the whole system, and then I started out by looking at the system as a whole strategically, and then how to reprogram it, what things to jettison, what things to keep, and that was great fun. They were such a fantastic client.
Yeah, and I remember even being a kid, it just seemed so colorful and so fun, like Slime Time Live, and I did that too.
Right. Yeah.
I'm kind of, I don't know if you would say that I'm aging myself. I'm like the opposite of aging myself here, but Summer Sanders was the love of my life at the time. So that logo was synonymous with beauty.
That's there.
So,
That's great. That's great. Yeah. Now it's gone. Now
bring back Slime Time Live. That's what this podcast is about today. Bring it back.
Exactly.
It's the
so
best show
great.
ever. It's classic.
Yeah, love Slime Time Live, and I think I went to Kids Choice once.
Yeah.
Never again. Your ears, you can't. It's like worse than a rock concert.
Really?
Like you've never heard so much noise in your life than all those kids screaming at once.
Did you come up with the blimp? The
blimp was before me. The blimp was Nash McPherson in Boston, and actually I think the blimp was one of the few things I kept.
Yeah.
Like I had gotten rid of almost all of the items all the icons that looked like real things because I didn't want to confuse the message. And the main point was every time you saw the Nick splat, you saw a character, so that you automatically would connect SpongeBob with Nickelodeon. Because I'd found when we had done focus group studies on it, we asked people, well, what channel is SpongeBob on? And they'd say Disney. So Disney had taken ownership of that product.
Right.
So it was like, okay, we need that splat next to every single product as often as possible. And if it were like a rocket ship or something like that, then people were like, was that show about rockets? So I was like, let's just move it away and make it much more the sort of Calder-esque kind of modern art approach of abstraction, which was fun. But I kept the blimp because I was like, oh, you got to keep the blimp,
Yeah, I mean, it definitely worked because I haven't, with the exception of like your website, I hadn't really like thought about it. But as a kid, if you were to say like visual, if someone's like my age, visually, what do you remember? They'd probably say that.
Yeah.
The
splat, the funny story on the splat logo is the ones that are like really splatty.
Yeah.
They had said, we had these sort of blobby splats. And then, someone at Nickelodeon said, it'd be great if they felt a little more like spit, because kids like to spit. And everyone in the studio tried so hard to make it look like spit. Couldn't do it. And finally, we just decided to just start spitting. And so there was a lot of spitting on paper towels and then scanning that in to get the exact shape right.
That's so crazy. That's dedication right there. That's rolling up your sleeves.
Exactly. We put our body fluids into it.
Yeah, I keep seeing on people's posts people's portfolios, they're like, it's really about like rolling up your sleeves and doing the work. I keep hearing that again and again, but it's not about that.
Right.
It's about spitting and, image
It's
tracing it
fitting. Yeah.
with
Yeah.
just the right color orange.
Right.
I don't want to keep you too much longer. Just have a couple more questions for you here. I keep reading articles that talk about Behance and Dribble, and they are great, great
Mhm.
platforms, and
Right.
they're very valuable. But there's kind of concern by the design community because design is really about form and function and having a purpose, and that's one of the
Mhm.
reasons why your work and the work of Pentagram are my favorites, and because there's real purpose involved. It's kind of like you
Mhm.
were saying before about Nickelodeon and with like Michael Beirut and all, with the signage systems that they do. That is great because it really solves for the human need, and designers are wanting to continue to do that. But with the internet, everyone's kind of making a portfolio that gets a lot of likes on Behance, and it's referred
Mhm.
to as like visual porn, which is
Right.
whoever
Right.
thought of that. Kudos to them.
Yeah.
But what's your take on all this? And do you think that design can be this kind of very aesthetically pleasing thing without having function, or does it need to do both?
That's a really good question. You have really good questions. I'm not
Thank
used
you.
to that. I'm used to just people saying,
Yeah.
really silly ones. But
Yeah.
it's actually a funny question that I've been grappling with for a while, and it came up with the AIJ competition, the Justified competition, and the AIJ Justified competition came about because people were complaining, well, it's just a beauty show. So the idea was, well, what if people submit, well, here's the solution and why it was made and the strategic reasons and the problems it solved, and that was great, but I started to feel like we'd swung a little too far to the other side, where we got like 11 entries, and they were all bone dry and incredibly like,
Yeah.
really, that's it? Like,
Bevels and drop
yeah, it makes
shadows.
sense, and it's maybe, yeah, but it's not like, wow, I'm gonna like put it on my wall.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember talking to Paula Chair about it, and Paula and I were saying maybe it's okay sometimes if something fails, but it's amazing. Like half of Paul Rand's work, you would never fit in a justified competition because it didn't yield gigantic results, or it didn't, or maybe it bombed,
Hmm.
but it moved the profession forward.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's important to make things wonderful like
Right.
that. Sort of that's where I came out of that was it should solve problems. It should, and those problems can be as simple as it should make someone feel better that day. It doesn't have to solve the world's problems,
Right.
and it should have some thought behind it. Otherwise, you're just jerking off,
Right.
and it's like, what's the, make
Yeah.
it do something. But at the same time, I don't. I think work that is just you can explain every last bit of it away sometimes loses a little bit of that sort of magic that
Right.
we put into it. That like Vanderbilt always says, he tells the client, look, 75% of this I can explain to you, and 25% I can't. Like it's just something I think has to happen,
Right.
and it's true. It's like, yeah, I can try to logically explain something, but in reality, no, I just did it because
Right.
I liked it.
Yeah. It's true. It's very true. And I think too that something, because I've thought about this a lot as well. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to get your take on it. I think that that content is kind of the thing that's kind of putting like the information back, because there are so many people that just put out, yourself included, so much content you just can't keep up. And I try and I follow these people on Twitter on purpose so that I will motivate myself to keep like making a podcast. This is
Right.
some people, a lot of people are like, this is crazy, like who are you
No,
gonna
I think it's a
who's gonna
fantastic
want
idea.
to talk to you? Well, here I am with Sean
Yeah.
Adams people, so no, just kidding. But no, but
Yeah, I'll go to the opening of a drawer. But no,
yeah.
it's because it's you. It's like,
Yeah.
you look, you're like, oh, he's a good guy. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, thank you. But people, I look at it like the least I could be doing. You know what I mean? Because I kind of compare myself to these people who are doing podcasts and having web chats and doing TED Talks, and it goes on and on and on. I talked to Todd DeWitt last week. I couldn't believe he had time to fit me in his schedule. But I think that content is going to be the thing that kind of gets design back on information, because
Yeah.
medium is getting very popular. You know what I mean? A lot of people are writing and I think that this kind of phase where we're seeing, look how beautiful this is, or I made this on live
Right.
surface. It's like, just because you made it on live
Yeah.
surface doesn't mean that it's great design.
Doesn't mean it's right.
It
Yeah.
means you put it on a coffee mug, and that's a very
Yeah.
beautiful looking coffee mug, but it's about the design. So hopefully that
Right.
with the rise of content and these discussions opening up and just being able to talk about that, I think that would be that will help steer the ship the right way again. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love the idea too. Like you doing the podcast is like it's not for you. It's like I mean, I know that in the end you're going to get some airplay off of it, but in reality, there's going to be someone out there who watches it, and maybe it'll spark an idea.
right.
Or maybe maybe someone's feeling kind of crappy that day and
Land
sort of
me a
down on
job
the
at Pentagram. No, I'm just kidding.
right. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You never know. But then I'm like, you think like, wow, someone out there might be having a crappy day, and then they watch your podcast and they're like, I never thought of it that way. Okay, I feel a little better about this profession.
Yep.
Hey, that's worth all the time anyone could put into anything.
Yep.
If I do a speaking engagement, I just figure, hey, if one person out there gets a little something and feels a little inspired, I'm happy to fly 3,000 miles and stay in some scary hotel that has blood on the wall.
Yeah.
Well, not happy, but I'll do it.
It'll make for good pictures on Burning Settlers Cabin, and that's
Yeah, I will.
and that's the same thing that I had. The inspiration for this podcast was without question was Debbie Millman and doing her podcast with Design Matters, and all the work they do with Design Observers is really great. But it's funny because she's so iconic in the eyes, and she's so successful. But when they talk about her, when she talks about when she first got started, it was nerves and having to talk with someone through humble beginnings and just hard work and dedication, and it just the next thing you know, it kind of manifested itself into this thing where people could relate. And I'm sure she wasn't expecting to have thousands of viewers and to be noted by Apple, and Apple recently which was good for her. That's awesome. But I think that it's not about the numbers. Our society, I think they want it to be about the number. How many views does this get? And that's not so. I think that people get they're looking for that endorphin rush, and they're looking for the satisfaction of getting it. It's not really what it's about. What it's about is enjoying the content and about learning and leveraging and all that great stuff. But so.
Yeah, and Debbie's like a great example of like she's doing it because she loves it. It's not she's famous enough. She could stop tomorrow and then she'd be nothing's going to change. Right. But she just loves it, and she loves being out there helping people and really working with them, and that's what makes her so incredibly special. And I think that's something you sort of have to address is this idea of like, okay, you gotta give back a little. You got to send the elevator back down. You got to like help others and move them along. Yeah.
And that's what's so great about the design community is that there are people like yourself. I mean, I'm sure you have better things to do than be sitting here with me, but if you reach out, I was amazed. All the people I reached out to, for the most part, got back. And
once I'm done, ask a busy person.
That's true. You're busy for a reason because you're getting it done.
Yes, you get stuff done.
Listen, Sean, I don't want to keep you all day, but thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
This has been fun. I had all these questions here. I got to about a fourth of them, but you're the kind of guy I could probably talk to all day. So
my grandmother used to say I could talk to a signpost, so that's probably true.
That's true. You could recite the alphabet, and it would still sound awesome.
No, it was just she's like you just talk and talk and talk. Shut up, for God's sake.
That's true. Just really quick though, as a last thing, if you had to give one piece of advice to somebody like myself who's graduating from college. And I read with your interview with Michael Beirut again. We should count how many times we've said it. I read with your interview that the last question should always be, what's your advice? What's the future of design and advice and things like that. So what is it? Let's hear it.
My best advice is relax. Yeah. Like good people don't slip through the cracks. Good people will succeed. It may take longer than you want, but that's what life's like. And your career is built on a series of successes, not just one, and not just one failure. It's it's long haul. You just get in there, but just relax. Good people never slip through the cracks. I've never ever seen it happen.
Really, that's my problem. Is that I'm always, but we're comparing ourselves constantly. That's the problem with our generation. Is we see these people and we see the end result. We see
Right. Yeah, you don't see the 20 years of things going down down the drain fast, or like, sitting on your way home crying. You don't see that part. You just see
Yeah.
the like, oh, I got some fancy finished work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Sean, thanks so much for joining me. And
My pleasure.
this has been awesome.